First steps in strange soil. The crystalline dome of Mira 9 Research Station gleamed like a soap bubble against the purple-tinged sky. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the airlock's inner chamber, watching as iridescent rain streaked down the transparent walls. After 6 months in deep space travel, she had finally arrived at what would be her home for the next 2 years. Your atmospheric adaptation period has concluded, Dr. Chen announced the station's AI in its characteristic multitonal voice. You may now proceed to the main laboratory. Sarah straightened her regulation jumpsuit and took a deep breath. She was the first human to ever set foot on this remote swamp world, and more importantly, the first human scientist to join the prestigious Galactic Research Initiative's Xenobiology Division. The weight of that responsibility pressed against her chest like a physical force. The airlock doors slid open with a soft hiss, releasing her into the station's main corridor. The architecture was a fascinating blend of various alien design philosophies. Crystalline archways merged with organic-looking support structures, while floating light orbs cast a gentle, adjustable illumination that accommodated the different visual requirements of the station's diverse inhabitants. Dr. Chen, a melodious voice, drew her attention. Dr. Vexterra, the station's lead researcher, glided toward her. Like all Meridians, Vexterra's body was a graceful collection of translucent tentacles that seemed to dance in an invisible current. Welcome to Mira 9. I trust your adaptation chamber experience was comfortable. Yes, thank you, Sarah replied, carefully modulating her voice to match the formal tones preferred by Meridians. The atmospheric adjustment was smoother than I expected. Excellent. The others are eager to begin today's field collection. Your arrival is quite timely. We've detected some fascinating bacterial colonies in the deep swamp regions. As they moved through the station, Sarah observed her new colleagues. Dr. Kist, an insectoid was calibrating collection equipment with their multiple limbs moving in perfect coordination. Near the sample storage units, Dr. Yulish, a towering crystalline Petrovan, was analyzing data streams that flowed directly through their partially transparent body. I've reviewed your work on extremophile bacteria from Earth's hydrothermal vents. Vexterra continued. Your experience will be invaluable here. The bacterial life forms we're studying show remarkable similarities to those you documented, but with some crucial differences that could revolutionize our understanding of chemical adaptation. Sarah nodded, her excitement building. I noticed in the preliminary data that they're producing some unusual protein structures. Have you been able to determine their function? That's precisely what we're struggling with. Vexterra's tentacles rippled in what Sarah recognized as scientific frustration. The proteins seem to have properties that defy our current understanding of biochemistry. We're hoping your unique perspective might help us make sense of it. They reached the main laboratory, a vast chamber filled with equipment that ranged from familiar to completely alien. Through the dome's transparent sections, Sarah could see the swamp that stretched to the horizon, a vast expanse of deep purple vegetation and shifting waters that seemed to pulse with life. Your environment suit has been customized to human physiology. Vexterra indicated a sleek suit that stood in a preparation chamber. We'll begin with a surface collection today, though the most interesting samples are in the deeper regions. As Sarah examined the suit, she noticed several modifications she hadn't expected. These pressure compensators, they're rated for much deeper deployment than standard units. Yes, Vexterra's voice carried a note of concern. The truly revolutionary bacteria exist in the deep swamp, but the pressure and conditions there are challenging. None of our current team members can safely operate at those depths. We've had to rely on remote collection devices, with limited success. Sarah's heart quickened as she ran her hands over the suit's reinforced joints. On Earth, she had specialized in deep-sea collection, developing techniques for sampling bacteria in the most extreme environments. This was why they had brought her here, not just for her scientific expertise, but for humanity's unique ability to adapt to hostile conditions. When can we start? She asked, already mentally reviewing deep pressure protocols. Vexterra's tentacles rippled with what might have been amusement. Your reputation for enthusiasm appears well-deserved, Dr. Chen. We'll begin surface collection in 1 hour. But first, there's something you should know about the bacterial colonies we're studying. The Meridian's tone grew serious. They're not just surviving in extreme conditions, they're actively altering their environment. And recently, they've started exhibiting patterns that suggest intelligence. Sarah's eyes widened as she looked out at the swamp again. Beneath the purple waters, something was stirring, and she was here to uncover its secrets. This was why she had traveled across the galaxy, not just to study alien life, but to push the boundaries of human knowledge and capability. The adventure was just beginning. The rising storm. 3 weeks into her assignment on Mira 9, Sarah Chen stood at the edge of a collection pool, carefully manipulating her sampling rod in the purple-tinted water. The bacterial colonies had grown more active since her arrival, creating intricate patterns that pulsed with bioluminescence in the depths. Behind her, Dr. Kist clicked their mandibles thoughtfully as they recorded the phenomenon. The wave formations are increasing in complexity, the Arctician scientist noted, their compound eyes reflecting the shifting lights. These can't be random movements. Sarah nodded, though she kept her focus on the delicate process of collecting samples. The bacteria seemed to respond to their presence, swirling in increasingly organized patterns. It was beautiful, but something about the display made her uneasy. A sudden gust of wind rattled her environment suit's external sensors. Looking up, she saw dark clouds gathering on the horizon, roiling with unusual energy. The storm hadn't been there minutes ago. "Kest," she said, "are sudden storms normal here?" The insectoid researcher's antennae twitched. Negative. Weather patterns on Mira 9 typically develop over several planetary rotations. This is anomalous. Sarah's comm unit crackled to life with Dr. Vexterra's urgent voice. "All field teams, return to the station immediately. Our meteorological instruments are detecting severe atmospheric disturbances approaching your position." They quickly packed their equipment, but Sarah insisted on securing their latest samples. These bacteria had shown the strongest signs of coordinated behavior yet. She wasn't about to lose them to a storm. As they rushed back toward the station, the wind grew stronger, and the purple waters of the swamp began to churn. Sarah's suit sensors were reporting increasing atmospheric pressure and unusual electrical activity. This wasn't just a storm. It was something she'd never seen before. They reached the station's airlock just as the first massive wave crashed against the dome's protective shields. Inside, they found the research team gathered around the main monitoring station, their various alien physiologies expressing what Sarah had learned to recognize as intense concern. "The storm's energy readings are off our charts." Dr. Ulish's crystalline form vibrated with tension as they displayed the data. "And it's growing exponentially." Sarah moved to study the readings, her experience with Earth's extreme weather events kicking in. These patterns, they're not random either. Look at the wave formations. She pulled up their bacterial behavior data alongside the storm patterns. The correlation was impossible to miss. The bacteria aren't just responding to the storm, she realized. They're predicting it. No, they're communicating with it. Impossible. Kest clicked. Bacterial colonies cannot influence planetary weather systems. On Earth, we have bacteria that can influence cloud formation. Sarah countered. What if these colonies have evolved to do something similar, but on a much larger scale? A violent tremor shook the station, and warning lights flashed across the control panels. Dr. Vexterra's tentacles writhed with alarm. The evacuation systems are malfunctioning. The pressure differentials are preventing the emergency ships from launching. Sarah studied the storm data again, her mind racing. The patterns were familiar, reminiscent of the pressure systems she'd studied in Earth's oceanic storms. But these were operating on a scale she'd never seen before. "We need to think of this as an underwater storm," she said firmly. "The atmosphere here has similar properties to Earth's oceans. If we can predict its behavior using marine storm models. She began inputting calculations, combining her knowledge of Earth's marine weather systems with the alien data before her. The others watched in fascination as she worked, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. There, she pointed to a visualization she created. The storms following deep ocean current patterns, just in a gaseous medium. If we time it right, we can use the pressure differences to our advantage. To do what? Yulish asked, their crystalline form refracting the emergency lights. To save both ourselves and our research, Sarah replied, already moving to modify the station's shield configurations. These bacteria aren't just surviving here. They're part of this planet's atmospheric regulation system, and I think they're trying to tell us something. Another tremor rocked the station, stronger than the last. Time was running out, but Sarah felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was what humans did best: adapting, solving problems, finding ways to work with nature instead of against it. As the storm raged outside, she began to implement her plan, knowing that understanding this connection between the bacteria and Mira 9's atmosphere could be the key to everything they'd been studying. The real question was whether they could survive long enough to unlock its secrets. Into the deep. Sarah's modifications to the station's shields had bought them time, but the storm had taken its toll. The primary sample storage unit had been damaged, and their most promising bacterial samples, the ones showing signs of coordinated intelligence, had been lost to the churning waters of the deep swamp. The samples are still registering on our scanners, Dr. Vexterra announced, their tentacles weaving complex patterns of distress. They're intact, but they're sinking. Current depth is approaching 800 meters. Sarah studied the depth readings with growing concern. The bacterial colonies were descending into one of Mira 9's deepest swamp trenches, where the pressure would crush most collection equipment. Even their reinforced remote gathering devices had failed at those depths. If we lose these samples, we lose proof of bacterial intelligence. Dr. Kist clicked, their mandibles twitching in agitation. Months of research gone. Dr. Ulish's crystalline form pulsed with frustrated light patterns. None of our species can physically withstand those pressures. Even my crystalline structure would shatter at that depth. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind already racing through calculations. Her specialized environment suit was rated for extreme pressures. She had used similar equipment in Earth's deepest ocean trenches. But this was different. The chemical composition of Mira 9's swamp created pressure conditions far more intense than Earth's oceans. "I can go," she said quietly, but with determination. The room fell silent. Even the station's ambient hum seemed to pause. Absolutely not. Vexterra's tentacles whipped through the air. The pressures at that depth are beyond our safety protocols. No sentient being has ever survived direct exposure to those conditions. Humans have a saying, Sarah replied, already moving toward the equipment bay. There's a first time for everything. My species has been diving into extreme environments for centuries. We've developed techniques, technologies, and physiological adaptations that make it possible. She began checking her suit's systems, making rapid modifications based on her deep-sea diving experience. The suit's pressure compensators can be recalibrated. If I adjust the internal atmosphere mix and reinforce the joint seals, the risk is unacceptable. Kest interrupted. You are the first human to join the initiative. If something goes wrong, you'll have data on human limitations in extreme environments. Sarah countered. If something goes right, we'll have proof of bacterial intelligence and possibly unlock the connection between these life forms and Mira 9's atmospheric phenomena. She turned to face her colleagues, her expression firm. This is why you brought a human onto the team, isn't it? We adapt. We push boundaries. We take calculated risks in the name of discovery. Vexterra's tentacles slowly settled into a pattern Sarah recognized as reluctant acceptance. What do you need? The next hour was a blur of preparation. Sarah modified her suit's systems while explaining each change to her fascinated colleagues. She integrated some of their alien technology with her human diving techniques, creating a hybrid system that might just keep her alive in the crushing depths. The bacterial colonies are stabilizing at 900 meters. Yulish reported, their crystalline form projecting the data in 3 dimensions. But they're beginning to disperse. We have perhaps 2 hours before the samples are too scattered to collect. Sarah sealed her helmet, running final checks on her equipment. The suit felt different with her modifications. Heavier, more restrictive, but hopefully more resilient. She had added backup systems for every critical function and installed a specialized sample collection unit of her own design. "I'll maintain constant communication," she said, her voice slightly distorted by the suit's enhanced atmospheric mix. "The moment anything seems off, I'll abort the dive." She could see the concern in her colleagues' alien features, expressed in twitching antennae, rippling tentacles, and pulsing crystalline structures. In the weeks she'd been here, they had become more than research partners. They had become friends. "The bacteria's bioluminescence is intensifying," Kest reported as Sarah stepped into the airlock. "It's as if they're calling to us," Sarah finished. She checked her wrist display, which showed the swirling patterns of light far below. The same patterns they had observed just before the storm. As the outer airlock door opened, Sarah took one last look at her team. "Humanity has always been drawn to the unknown," she said. "It's time to see what secrets Mira 9 has been keeping in its depths." With that, she stepped out into the purple waters of the alien swamp, ready to descend into mysteries no human, and perhaps no other being, had ever encountered before. Adaptation. The purple waters of Mira 9 grew darker as Sarah descended. At 300 meters, her suit's external lights activated automatically, illuminating particles that drifted like glowing snow in the alien liquid. The pressure gauge on her wrist display climbed steadily, already exceeding the theoretical safety limits for most deep-sea equipment. Status update. Dr. Vextera's voice crackled through her comm system. "All systems functioning," Sarah replied, keeping her breathing steady and controlled. "Pressure is intense but manageable. The suit modifications are holding." She had reached 500 meters when she first noticed it, a faint pulse of bioluminescence that didn't match the random patterns of the local flora. The bacterial colonies were somewhere below her, their organized light displays growing stronger as she descended. 600 meters, she reported, temperature dropping rapidly, activating secondary thermal regulators. The suit groaned as the pressure increased. Sarah had reinforced the joints with a combination of Earth deep-sea technology and crystalline components borrowed from Dr. Eulish's personal equipment. The hybrid technology was performing better than she'd hoped, distributing the crushing force across the suit's structure. 700 meters, Kest's voice came through. "You're approaching the previous depth record for any sentient exploration on Mira 9. Sarah watched as her depth gauge passed 750 meters. The pressure was becoming incredible. She could feel it even through the reinforced suit. But something else was happening too. The bacterial light patterns had changed, forming complex geometric shapes that rotated and transformed in the darkness. "Are you receiving these visual feeds?" she asked, making sure her suit's cameras were capturing everything. "The bacteria. They're responding to my presence." "Confirmed," Yulish replied, their voice carrying an undercurrent of excitement. "The patterns match what we observed before the storm, but with significant variations." At 800 meters, Sarah's suit sensors began registering anomalous readings. The water around her was changing, becoming denser, more viscous. The bacterial light display intensified, creating a tunnel of shifting illumination that seemed to lead further down. "Something's different about the chemical composition at this depth," she reported, taking samples with her suit's external collectors. "The bacteria aren't just surviving here. They're altering their environment." She continued her descent, fighting against the increasing viscosity of the liquid. The suit's joint modifications were being pushed to their limits. She could hear the crystalline components creaking under the strain. 850 meters, she said through gritted teeth. Primary pressure compensators at maximum. Switching to backup systems. The bacterial light display suddenly pulsed with unprecedented intensity. Sarah gasped as she saw what it illuminated. A vast network of organic structures stretching through the depths, like a living metropolis of microscopic life. "This is incredible," she breathed. "They've built something down here. Some kind of collective structure." But her amazement was cut short by a warning alert. One of her suit's primary seals was showing signs of stress. The pressure at this depth was beyond anything they had anticipated. "Dr. Chen," Vexterra's voice was urgent. "Your suit integrity is approaching critical levels. You must ascend." Sarah checked her depth, 890 meters. The lost samples were just below her, their distinctive bioluminescence pulsing like a beacon. So close. "Wait," she said, an idea forming. "The bacteria, they're not just surviving this pressure. They're using it. Look at the way they're manipulating the liquid density around their structures." Working quickly, she began reconfiguring her suit's external field generators, trying to mimic the bacterial colony's technique. It was a desperate gamble, but it was based on something she'd observed in deep-sea bacteria on Earth, the ability to create localized changes in their immediate environment. "Rerouting power to field generators," she reported. "If I can create a low-pressure bubble around the suit, using the bacteria's own method, the power consumption will be enormous," Kest warned. "Your reserves will last long enough." Sarah finished. She activated the modified field. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, the crushing pressure eased. The bacteria around her pulsed with light, as if responding to her adaptation. "It's working," she said, relief flooding through her. "They're helping somehow. The bacterial structures are amplifying the effect." With renewed confidence, Sarah pushed deeper. The bacterial colonies seemed to guide her, their bioluminescent signals creating a path through their underwater city. At 900 meters, she finally reached the lost samples, still intact in their containment field. As she carefully secured the samples, Sarah realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't just their ability to survive in extreme conditions. It was their ability to learn from every form of life they encountered, to adapt not just their technology, but their understanding of what was possible. "Samples secured," she reported, already beginning her careful ascent. "And I think we've just discovered something far more important than we expected." Above her, the bacterial metropolis pulsed with light, as if acknowledging her success. She had not only survived at depths no sentient being had reached before, she had learned to work with the very life forms she had come to study. It was a uniquely human triumph, born of curiosity, adaptability, and the willingness to trust in the unknown. Breakthrough. 2 days after her historic dive, Sarah stood before a holographic display in Mira 9's main laboratory, watching in amazement as the recovered bacterial samples continued to demonstrate their remarkable abilities. The colonies had been carefully transferred to a specialized containment unit that simulated the extreme pressures of their deep swamp habitat, and their behavior was revolutionizing everything they thought they knew about microbial life. The implications are staggering. Dr. Vexterra's tentacles moved in complex patterns of scientific excitement as they reviewed the data. These aren't just colonies. They're a collective intelligence that has evolved to manipulate their environment at a molecular level. Sarah nodded, watching as the bacteria arranged themselves into the now familiar geometric patterns they had witnessed in the depths. They're not just surviving the pressure. They're using it as a communication medium. The storms, the pressure waves, even the bioluminescence, it's all part of a planetary scale network. Dr. Kest moved closer to the display, their compound eyes reflecting the bacterial light patterns. "Your theory about their connection to Mira 9's weather systems has been confirmed. They're not just predicting the storms, they're regulating them, maintaining a delicate atmospheric balance that has likely existed for millions of years." A bacterial civilization. Dr. Ulish's crystalline form pulsed with wonder. Hidden in the depths, engineering their environment in ways we never imagined possible. And we might never have discovered it without. They paused, their crystal structure refracting light, in what Sarah had learned was their expression of respect, without human adaptability. Sarah smiled, touching the fresh scar on her hand where the pressure had caused one of her suit's internal sensors to buckle. It was a small price to pay for such a monumental discovery. Humanity has always been driven to explore the unknown, to push beyond our limitations. But what we found down there proves something even more important, that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from conquering extreme environments, but from learning to work with them. The bacterial samples pulsed with light, as if emphasizing her point. Their analysis had revealed that the colonies used pressure waves to communicate across vast distances, coordinating their activities to maintain Mira 9's complex ecological balance. The storm that had threatened the station had been part of their normal regulatory process. They had been trying to prevent a potentially catastrophic atmospheric disturbance. The Galactic Research Initiative has approved our proposal, Vexterra announced, their tentacles forming patterns of satisfaction. We're establishing a permanent deep swamp research facility. And they want you, Dr. Chen, to lead the project. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. Me? But I'm still the newest member of the team. You are the only one who has demonstrated the ability to safely reach the depths. Kest clicked. More importantly, your approach to combining technologies and understanding biological adaptation has opened new avenues of research we never considered. The initiative believes, and we agree, Ulish added, that humanity's perspective is vital to the future of xenobiological research. Your species' history of surviving and thriving in extreme environments, combined with your innovative problem-solving abilities, makes you uniquely qualified. Sarah turned back to the bacterial display, watching as the colonies continued their mesmerizing dance of light and geometry. In the depths of Mira 9's swamps, they had discovered not just a new form of life, but a new understanding of intelligence itself. The bacteria had built a civilization unlike anything ever encountered, proving that consciousness and technology could evolve in ways they had never imagined. We're going to need a bigger lab, she said finally, already planning modifications to their equipment. And I want to train more human deep swamp divers. If these bacteria have built one underwater metropolis, there might be others. We've only scratched the surface of what Mira 9 has to teach us. The bacterial colonies pulsed with light, their patterns momentarily matching the excited expressions of her alien colleagues. In that moment, Sarah felt a profound sense of connection, not just to her team, but to the vast tapestry of life that existed across the galaxy. Humanity had taken its first steps into the galactic scientific community, not through force or dominance, but through curiosity, adaptability, and the willingness to learn from every form of life they encountered. As she began drafting plans for the new research facility, Sarah reflected on how far she had come from her days studying Earth's deep-sea bacteria. Here, on a distant swamp world, humanity had proven its worth not through strength alone, but through the very qualities that had allowed their species to survive and thrive on Earth: innovation, courage, and the ability to see beauty and potential in the most extreme environments. The future of xenobiology would be shaped by this discovery, and humanity would help lead the way, one adaptation at a time.